Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker Training. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of fmtraining.tv, where there goes the screen. It's being updated. That's awesome. So every day we're talking about the FileMaker platform. Today is day four of FileMaker, basically for beginners, starting at the beginning and working our way through from the beginning to more kind of intermediate topics. In fact, Margaret, can you show the progression of learning real quick? Just hit the button for that. The progression of learning is where we're starting off with a brand new developer. This is kind of the progression from left to right. I mean, we skipped the business owner person, right? But the beginning, brand new developer, about a year and a half ago, that was Megan. She was the brand new person. Now she's probably a more of an intermediate developer, I would guess. But this course is around reminding people basics. Maybe they forgot, maybe they haven't done FileMaker development in a while, done building an application. I'm not talking about using FileMaker as an end user. I'm talking about going into layout mode, making layouts, editing layouts, writing scripts, understanding schema, the relationship graph, things like that. So our goal is to move you from brand new beginning developer to a better FileMaker developer, maybe even as far as intermediate. If some of you are senior ninjas out there, you already know who you are. If you have questions, feel free to ask, but just understand that you may be sufficiently bored with this training material. So if you look at the upcoming broadcast schedule, we see that every day upcoming is going to be this material. Next week, I'm going to be transitioning to Texas. So Calvin Moseman, one of our senior engineers, will be here presenting on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That should be like that. So today is going to be on layout, the tools within layout mode, etc. I can tell you that I almost never use all the tools that are in layout mode. I use, depending on how deep I'm going, 80 or 90% of them, but there's always like 1 out of 10 that I never click at, I don't use it, and I probably don't even know what it does. And so if we run into that today, we are going to try to cover that. Real quick, we did talk yesterday about security in FileMaker Server. That conversation is not over yet. We're just going to do a layout. Schedule calls for us to cover the layout material today. We'll be lucky to get it all in today. There is a kind of a curriculum that we've written. Took Claris's curriculum from back in the FileMaker 15 days, and we've been aggressively updating it on our own dime and our own nickel to do that. So we are basically doing that, and that's what we're following. We're also updating it as well, because about every 18 months, Claris changes the name of one of their products, or they change the company name, or they do something that causes everyone to scratch their heads. Today's conversation, we're going to pick up the fire. I've been told that I misspelled fire marshal. There's a difference between a fire marshal and a law enforcement, like a U.S. Marshal. And I would only say that there's also the enforcer marshal if you're from organized crime, and that is spelled with 3 L's. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to double click this and fire this up. And so this is a database we're playing with the other day. And so what we're going to do is we're going to play with this today. We're going to clean some things up. If you're a beginning FileMaker developer, if you have full access to the file, yesterday we talked about access levels. Let's just briefly rewind that very quickly. So if you have a brand new FileMaker file, and when you have a brand new file, FileMaker won't ask you for a username and password. Test question: is there a username and password on a file that doesn't ask you for the username and password? The answer is yes, right? So here by auto entry, it's admin, no password, and it's full access. Full access allows us to edit the layouts. Full access allows us to edit the database design, right? Also to edit the layouts. Remember, if the FileMaker file auto enters the password, that was under file options, and then you could say, remember what I said about this attempt to log in, right? This is not a guaranteed thing. This is an attempt. An attempt will be made. It doesn't tell you that it's going to be successful, okay? In this case, it didn't ask us for username and password. It was successful, okay? But just remember these little tips that I give you along the way. So, Margaret, any upfront questions? No, we good so far?
We're good. There are no upfront questions.
Okay, so what we're going to do is talk about layout mode and the tools under layout mode. Claris put this button up here at the top, says edit layout. And you can also get it over here. This is the older school way of doing it, Command or Control L. It's Command on the Mac and Control on Windows. And you go to layout mode like that. What you have is the right pane and the left pane. And the left pane has 3 panels. So these are called panels in here. The panels are the parts of the pane. So this left pane, I can hide the left pane, show the left pane, and with the right pane, it's the same thing. Right pane show, right pane hide and show, etc. And so the idea that there's panels, so there's 3 over here, there's 4 over here. Here they have names on them, here they have graphics on them. Why? Because once upon a time, there were text names over here, but they thought that these words, position, styles, appearance, and data, it was getting too wordy and they wanted to be more graphical, right? But they had a hard time coming up with graphics that would adequately describe what a field was versus an object versus an add-on. So they put the words over here and they have a little more room. You can resize these appropriately. Once again, you're not going to see these panes if you're in browse mode, only in layout mode. Now, if I hide both of them, and so then you see it like this, I go to browse mode, layout mode, I'm using a keyboard shortcut. Browse mode, layout mode, browse mode, layout mode. It keeps it almost on an identical spot, okay? You might see a little shifting of things due to some minor adjustments, but unless these panes are designed to inflate, and it will remember your last setting, I'm going to inflate them like an air in a tire. There it goes. Okay, so let's talk about these. On the left side, I'm just going to cover the left two items first. These are all the fields on this layout, okay? So we talked about this up here. These are all the layouts that are available. This allows us to edit, do the layout setup, which is also right here. So that right there is the same as the pencil right there, layout setup, okay? This is the base table that it belongs to, okay? And so these are the fields. Sometimes I'm over here looking and I'm clicking on something, I'm like, how come this isn't showing up over here? I realize that I'm looking at fields. That's not a field. This is a field. What we want to see is the objects. Then it shows you everything, which includes the fields. Makes sense? So these are all the fields, and they're in the hierarchical order of the way they are drawn from top of the layer to the bottom of the layer. So I'm going to wave my hands here. I don't know if people can see me. Mark, can they see me? Waving my hands?
Yes, they can.
So if you're familiar with Photoshop or you've been around FileMaker for a while, you already know this, but you see things and things appear to be flat, and they are kind of flat. However, FileMaker really draws them on screen back to front. And so what it does, it starts drawing down here on address. It literally, before you see it, FileMaker at, warp 9 speed, at computer processing speed, we're talking gigahertz and things like that, will draw the address, and then the label address. So if I click on it, there it is right there. It draws that one first, then it draws that, and then it draws this and draws this. And what it does, it's layering them on top of each other. Every time it draws something, it's like a layer. So for like a Photoshop layer. And so what happens is that as long as nothing is on top of each other, right, then you don't have a problem. But if I put the photo field like this, so how does this even work, right? Well, the way FileMaker draws it, the way modern technology draws things in the way that we have to think about it, it draws from back to front. So it draws this, and as I click it, it highlights it over here, then this, then this, then this, then this, then this, then the label for photo there, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then this. And where's the actual photo field at? Right there. It's right there. So everything that's underneath here is below it. Now, you would never know it's below it if it's like this. You have no idea as a user or even a developer. You just look at this, you have no idea who's on top of what, right? Who's on top? Who's on first? What's on second? I don't know who's on third, right? That old joke from way back when. I am not even doing it correctly, but some of you have been around, you know what I'm talking about. So this photo, now you could say, well, I want the photo to be further back. So you can grab it and drag it down here. Now, does it look different? No, it doesn't look different at all. But if I drag it on top, ooh, it's behind, right? So that's an important concept of layering, okay? So the objects operation over here controls the layering. Add-ons is something we're not really talking about. These are like where you can try to add on a calendar, add on some other miscellaneous widgets and things in FileMaker. These are some generic ones that Claris puts out. We've also had live streams on hot topics and other things that you can add in, okay? That's a much more, frankly, advanced conversation. It's not so simple necessarily. Some of it's simple, but it can get rapidly advanced very quickly. So fields are fields, okay? These are the actual fields where data is stored, the parts that we're really concerned about. But then as we draw pictures and we have little boxes, and so say I want to put a graphic on the desktop, right? So I'm going to put this graphic. Where'd that go? Where'd that one graphic go? Did I throw it away? Hopefully I didn't throw it away. Well, I'll grab this graphic right here. And actually, no, I need a, here's the deal. This is just not right. We need Kermit the Frog and Mrs. Piggy, right? Oh, here's a Law and Order. Here we go. I'm going to do a quick screenshot. So there we go. So this is an image. If we have an image and it now saves it, no thanks. It's going to go to the desktop up here. Call it Fred. There is Fred.png, I'm assuming. Okay. So we're on layout mode. I come over here and I drag it on. If I'm going to drag it in here, am I sticking this image into a field for storage? No, it's actually on the layout. So if I go to browse mode and I have 4 records up here, as I flip through the records, it's always on here, right? So understand that dragging an image or artwork onto the layout in layout mode is decidedly different than sticking Fred into the photo. I think there's a photo field right here. So now it's Fred, this jail, he's in jail here. He's on record 4, right? See how that works? So there's a difference between sticking graphics and doing things in layout mode. Layout mode is a developer. It's your presentation, how you're going to present the data to the end user, right? So when I'm here working at Big Valley Aviation, and we're talking about, they're talking about doing maintenance on helicopters, I am trying to present the data in the most meaningful way that will cause them not to be confused, which also sounds really great, but it also leads to fewer questions and phone calls to me, right? And them being happier, right? So it's all a good thing, right? So trying to make a great interface leads to higher customer satisfaction and leads to less phone calls to you, right? Like, hey, how does this work? I don't know how this works. They asked me a question about that yesterday, and I could see where I had not done the best job with the interface. So I'm going to go back from browse mode to layout mode. I've got Fred right here. I'm gonna take Fred, and I can resize Fred, but understand that we don't see Fred over here, right? In fact, Fred doesn't really have a name right now. So if we go over to objects, it's called a graphic, okay? And that's like, it's a graphic. Well, I can come over here on this side. So we have fields and objects. We understand that a field is an object, right? And so understand that field is a subset of all the objects that could be on the layout. Very rarely would you have a layout that only has fields on it. So normally objects would be a superset of everything. So over here, you can actually click on things and name them. This is kind of an important topic. So this is the most common tab over here that you'll use. The most common tab, either fields or objects over here. And these tab panels over here, they're really tab panels, what they are. You don't see the tab's invisible, but that's what this is. This is the data one. This is the most common one that most people are going to hang out on. We're going to spend some time in here. But real quick, since we're talking about objects and fields over here, if I go to the far left one, which is called position, I can click in here and give this object a name. I can call this Fred. Now, I change his name to Fred. If I'm over here, suddenly it doesn't say graphic or whatever it said. It says Fred. Now, as I move Fred around, I might be working on the system, and maybe I want Fred to show up sometimes, right? And maybe I don't want him to show up sometimes. Maybe we put a calculation on here to make Fred show up or not show up. The point is, though, is that there's things underneath there. I know Fred's at the top of the stack, right? So he's the very top of the stack. If I drag Fred to the very bottom of the stack, then he's underneath, and I can select things in between. But if he's at the top of the stack, and I really don't want to mess with the order, but Fred's in the way, I can tell Fred to hide. And so eyeball-wise, if I look over here, this is grayed out, okay? And so Fred is still there. If I go to browse mode, Fred is there. If I go to layout mode, he's not there. Browse mode, layout mode, browse mode, layout mode. You get the idea that it remembers your last setting. Okay, you don't have to redo it. So you could test it. You could be over here testing, like, oh, this isn't working, and I need to make this, a different size, or this has to be bold and bigger and italics. And they're going to test it again. Go back to browse mode. Oh, well, so back to layout mode. So the idea is that it remembers. It's intelligent. It's smart. This is very powerful. Now the rub is that sometimes you'll have something hidden here, something hidden here, something hidden there, something hidden there. And before long, it's kind of like you're like, damn, I can't tell what's hidden and what's not hidden. It's kind of grayed out, but it's not really. I mean, if you look at this, that's black and that's like, pretty dark gray, really. So those, if it's, you're not going to see those really, really well, as maybe you should. You can reset everything by hitting the eyeball up here, which will show everything. So it unwinds what you're doing and shows everything. Also, I believe if you close the file and then reopen the file, it will reset that and I go back to layout mode, yeah, it resets everything to be visible. So if you close the file, reopen it, you're going to lose the whatever settings you made there. Okay, so pretty neat. So once again, if you hide Fred, hide some things, and Fred's here, and you hide, right, and then you come back and say, "Show me everything." There we go. Right, pretty cool. So, questions so far?
Not at the moment. So,
Important note that an object on the layout cannot share the name with another object, the same name on the same layout. So you can't have two Freds on this layout. Real simple, okay? If I go over here and I say, I'm going to duplicate this graphic, there's no duplicate on that. Let me click here. Let me say view. Where is duplicate at? There's Command D. I just normally use a keyboard shortcut, Command D. Now, we have Fred and Fred, it's not Fred 2, it's Fred copy. Interesting. So if I delete, and so if I try to change this one to Fred, and I hit return, Fred is already in use. Please provide a unique name. If I delete this, I delete Fred copy, I copy this, I paste it. There you go. So sometimes it's copy, sometimes it's Fred 2, right? Because FileMaker's not sure it's a copy, but so that's normally what I'm used to seeing right here is not the copy, but the word Fred 2. Once again, you cannot change. We can't have two Freds. There can only be one Fred. So if you look over here, you have Fred and Fred 2. Very, very important because programmatically, you can target an object on the layout with a script step. You say, go to Fred and do to Fred. Okay, you can say that. If you name an address field here, we call it, important, right? Or something, right? And you could say, go to object important and set this value or do something or whatever, right? You can target that specifically with a script. We haven't talked about scripts yet. Just understand that if you name it and you know the name, you can target it, right? It's kind of like it's like law enforcement, right? We're going to target the criminal elements, but if you don't even know who the people are, you just know that there's bad guys out there and they're bad and they're doing street racing or something, right? That's something that I don't particularly care about too much. If someone wants to street race and do donuts in the intersection, cool. They're going to need new tires. They're just stimulating the economy by buying new tires from Michelin or whatever tire company you like, right? I'm being completely serious. And if you're dumb enough to sit out there in the intersection and get hit, tough, right? That's called Darwin's Award for being stupid. So, but they're street racing and we're going to bust them. Well, it's helpful if you know who they are, right? If you just want to set a trap at every intersection, wait for them, we're going to wait. We're going to hide and they won't see us until 2 a.m. and then we'll see us. So understand that if you want to target the bad guys or target an object in your FileMaker layout, you need to know the name, or it's very helpful to know the name, or you're going to waste a lot of time chasing after stuff. So that's very, very important. So let's talk about.
We have a question real fast.
We have a question.
We do.
We have a question. Go.
Can you lock the layers like in Photoshop?
You can lock an object, yes. So objects can be, okay, so let's talk about this. Well, let me see. Yeah, well, let's cover it real quick right here because I don't think it's over here. I don't use it that way. Once again, this might get into that 1% area where I don't.
Hold on, it's right there. Go back to where you were.
This is
arrange and align at the very bottom. Group, arrange, lock.
Here's okay. It is right here. Group and lock. I've never used these 3 buttons right here. I use them up here at the top, which is where they used to be back in 1912 when we had FileMaker 3 and we all walked to school barefoot 5 miles uphill in the snow. We only had stuff up here. So that's my problem, right? So old school, right? So if you select Fred, and we also, let me select Fred. I needed something else too while we're at it. I got Fred and Wilma and Juan. We're going to put, there we go. I'm going to drag him on there. Here we go. We got these people on here. So we have Fred and graphic probably is what it'll say. Yep, there's Fred, graphic and graphic. So what I want to do is I want to lock Fred. Normally what I would do is I would go up under here under arrange and I would say lock. This arrange and lock is also the same as these buttons that you have right here. So you can lock Fred. And Fred is now locked with the little crosshair. So you can't really, you can hide Fred because you're not really changing him. Can you move Fred? You can still move Fred. So Fred is not locked in its position hierarchically over here in the draw, but you cannot move Fred or change the size of Fred or do something like that. Now, let's say you have Fred, and I'm gonna unlock Fred. Now we got We got Juan. So I'm going to change. Here's Juan. I got that. I'm going to change Juan. Can I double click it right here? Specify object name. So this is another way of doing it, right? Juan. Okay, there's Juan and a tie. Juan's kind of questionable. And then if I got graphic right here, I got Sally. So I want Sally, Juan, and Fred all together. I'm going to select all three, and I'm going to tell it to, you could lock them, and they will all be locked. But what I would do is group them. So now they're attached together as a group, right? So this is very much, I think, very similar to Photoshop in a lot of ways. So that it's a group. Now you can lock the group as well. But because they're a group, now they're in a box here, and they all have a specific position in the graphical drawing process, right? So if I grab the group, I can move the group down here. I can also hide the group. Can I give the group a name? Specify object name. People who do crime. All right, so there's the object name. I'm not sure how that would work in trying to target it. Put it in a string, put it in quotes, it'd probably be okay. So it's in the middle here. So notice that some things are drawing on top of it because they're above the layer. If you're a Photoshop person, you're already, and you've done Photoshop for more than a day, you know about layering and stuff like that. This is pretty common.
What happens if you resize the group?
If you resize the group, the whole thing grows together like this and it gets screwed up. So you need to be careful about how you do that. So you might want to ungroup it. Now, the other thing is you can get inside a group. There's limits to what it could do. It used to be that you couldn't edit inside a group, FileMaker, but since it's not locked, I can double. So what I did is I click once on the group. Now I click twice. See that? So now it turns the group. It's dotted line, shows the outside of the group. And now I can monkey with Fred inside the group. What about her? I can get her too. I can move her everywhere. And then there's Juan. He's questionable. Okay, he embezzles the money and does money laundering. Okay, he's the owner of the company like me. He he's in the pokey. Okay, and then there's Sally, who is the person who she's the director of operations. She's not been busted yet. All right, cool. So we got the money laundering, we got the money laundering and the director of operations, and the owner's in jail. All right, cool. Next question. Is that it for the moment?
That is it for the moment. So
okay, so once again, browse mode, layout mode. All right, so these are the objects on the side. So we've talked about the ones on the left. I think we pretty well explored them. You can obviously do a search over here. Dude, somewhere there's someone named Fred. Now, some of you have seen Nick Hunter and his layouts, and he puts like 5 billion little things on the layout stuff. You might have to target it with a name, right? But that's how you can do that. Search is kind of nice. On the right side, let's talk about the data viewer. So the data panel is where you can take a field and you can, like this one here, you can make it a pop-up, control style. So control styles we'll start at the top. This is the name of the field and where it comes from, okay? If I edit this, it's going to say, would you like to change this field to be a different field? You can also double click on this field to get the same box, okay? So I almost never have I think I pushed this checkbox twice, once when I did this training last year, once when I did it right here. Normally you just double click, click, and it allows you to edit it. Okay, next one, placeholder text. This is what it's going to say if it has nothing to say. Dude, I am empty, right? So if I hit return, I go to browse mode, it says that, and you click it there, and as soon as you type something, it goes away. A kind of a nice feature of a modern day thing. It was in browsers, then Claris saw the browsers and said, wow, that's a really great idea. We should do that. So they did that. Kind of nice. So that is the placeholder text. Show the placeholder in find mode, pretty straightforward. There is find mode. Remember we talked about the modes. Quickly, Ruben. Is Ruben there? Is he paying attention? Ruben, where are you? The four
Ruben
modes.
is not here. So.
Ruben's not here. David Angel, quickly. I need the 4 modes. I'll answer that question momentarily after he answers my question. What are the 4 modes, David? Go, David. Or we're going to send the popo to your house. Okay, that's not the answer. Okay. Margaret, if you get David's answer, feel free to give me that. So browse, preview mode, find mode, and layout mode, correct. Yeah, I like it when you folks keep it lively. So we have the police cat that's on the job. Yes, so the graphics can be, okay, the way FileMaker works internally is a little more advanced. If you put like a GIF in or a bump in BMP as a Windows format, it generally likes to support all the formats for the most part. I don't know if it's supporting the HEC formats yet. HEIC. Let me see if I have an HEIC photo. Those are JPEGs. Do I have an HEIC somewhere? Let me just try this real quick. Full scale aviation, images. Where's the pictures and images at? Nope, nope, nope. Yeah, there we go. Top, bottom. And then I go to 23 because they have the new file format, right? I might have on my phone set them to on my phone to only use JPEGs, but there are newer formats that come out. And generally, FileMaker will support the newer formats, but there may be a delay in that. Internally, what FileMaker does is it converts them to JPEGs, is what it does. Internally, converts them to JPEGs that it will use. I think that's still the case. I would check with Clay Mackle on that, but it is some internal shenanigans that goes on with that to display and make thumbnails and stuff. But generally, as a rule, you can put SVGs, you can put ESPNs in here. That's a joke for David Angel. You can put in SVG, yeah, vector, most all of them, including EPS. EPS is what I'm thinking of, like Illustrator files. Although I don't know if you could put a straight Illustrator file in or not. Yeah, try that. Anyway, so basically it supports most all of everything you want to do, but you want to test on that. Like the first time HEIC came out, it's the high efficiency photo format that they had, that Apple had, other people using it. It wasn't, I don't even know if I even have one of those. Margaret, if you can grab one and stick it in Slack, let me know.
I'm working on that at the moment. I'm trying to find a cat picture that works.
Once again, data viewer would come down here, placeholders, control style. So let's talk about control styles real quick. A control style is the idea of, okay, so if you have a box and you can type in it, that's an edit box. If you have a drop-down list, that's literally all these other ones, drop-down list, menu, checkbox, radio button. These four right here all have to be based on a value list. So if I say it's a drop-down list, it's going to say what list, and I don't have any lists in here. So let's just say that we have the Ed. Do you have Ed Burkle? I don't know if he's here still. Well, we'll just have to make some stuff up. We'll make stuff up about Ed.
Ed is here.
Okay, let's talk about let's take about the inspection results. Like if he does a fire marshal inspection, I call it inspection results. These are the possible results, right? We have, they passed, I would say mildly
There's an SL, there you go.
building. That's mildly flammable.
Ed says approved, failed, partial approval.
So. What do you say? Give that to me again.
Approved, failed, partial approval.
Failed, partial approval, and then let's put I got a plan for that one. That's cool. All right, so here we got these four. So these are values in the value list. So in FileMaker, there are things called a value list. A value list at a beginner level, all it is like text. You could copy this out of a Word file. So if you were in Word or Excel or something like that, like I went over here, right here's a pages file, and I wanted these right here. I could grab these in here and then come back over here and just glue them in, right? I hit return, paste them in. Look at that, right? This is just a block of text, but it sees a carriage return. There's a return key, right? So on your keyboard, there's a big return character. That's special. It means special things to computers in general, okay? So that's the idea of these are text items with a return character at the end of them. You can't see the return character, it's invisible, but it's there. So I say, okay. So it's going to say drop-down list, inspection results, and then these are little like additional optional thingies that you can do, like show an arrow and allow editing a value list. That's kind of a fun one, okay? Let me just turn that off and go to browse mode. So I click on here, failed. Now this is a pop-down list. So the thing with pop-down lists is that you still allows people to click in here and put their other stuff. I could say something like, let's just say that we're going there, we're inspecting them, and it's the hangout for the Sopranos. Remember the pool hall, the Sopranos, and they said it was fire hazard, and I think I spelled that incorrectly. But they offered me a bribe because that's what organized crime would do. A bride. How about a bribe? A bribe is much more valuable than a bride. potentially, or vice versa. You have to figure that out. Now, here's the problem. See, these are the 4 values that you wanted to have, but by giving them a list here, it allows them to type their own stuff in. And the problem is you think that's a good idea, and it might be a good idea, but if you want to do a report, and the report's going to say, you want the percent, like a pie chart, how many were approved, how many were failed, how many are partial, and you set up a pie chart, the pie chart will be incomplete because you'll have this other data points over here that someone just made this up. Okay, never mind that they offered a bribe or a bride, whatever works for you. The problem is that won't fit neatly in your reporting, situation if you want to put statistics to it. Unless you do an AI, then they have the AI try to figure it out, and then it's up to the smartness of the AI to ascertain what a fire hazard is. But they offered me a bribe. I don't know. Is that approved? If you accept the bribe, then it's approved, right? And if you don't, then you refer them to law enforcement and you say it's failed, right? And then you better wear body armor and carry a gun because their mafia is coming for you. So you got to be careful with that. So anyway, so that's that mode. If I go back to layout mode, I'm going to click on this, and let's say we have inspection results, but we want to keep that, but we want to restrict what they can type in there. Let's say a pop-up menu. Okay, got that. And then, so pop-up menu. So now we click on here, we must select one of the 4. We're not allowed to just freelance and make our shit up, right? Pretty good. But I can't really edit. What if the staff, you're like trusted your staff to like give you good suggestions, and they're just going to make the suggestions in here, right? Like where they were typing it before. That's a little bit willy-nilly. But what if you came over here and you said, well, allow editing of the value list, right? Allow editing of the value list. You go to browse mode and you say, well, it's fail, approve, fail, partial, edit, or approval or edit. And then you could come over here, and if you put a line in here that it's pretty cool. You'll see a horizontal break, and I'm going to put death trap. Okay, it's a death trap. That's way worse than failed. Okay, go to browse mode. Here we go, and I click on here. Look, I put that nice horizontal break in there. That's 1 minus character. It's the one at the top right of your keyboard. Next to equal sign, it's the minus sign right there. And then you still have the edit in here, right? So you can edit this. The problem is with edit is that as long as it's for you, small team, it's fine. But if you have a big group of people and some of them are like salespeople, they're going to make shit up and that'll just make a mess of it. If you have if these words drive calculation, say like, if this field equals failed, then do this other thing. But they don't like the word failed. So they're just going to put in here, not really good. Okay. Well, failed and not really good could be similar, but if you're looking for a calculation string that says failed and they put not really good, then FileMaker, because it doesn't have an AI, we want it to be very strict in how it manages data, is not going to pass that forward. So just think about things. While there are things in here, you may or may not want to turn them on. Okay. Checkbox set. Checkbox set is interesting. You can make it a little bigger. You can make it like this. I can move this out of the way, bring this down. Whoa. Okay, that's one of those little obnoxious things that FileMaker does. It just goes warp 980. There we go. We'll go back to browse mode. So then you can turn these on. Now, if you turn on more than one, what is the actual value in the field? Okay, this is a really good one. So I'm going to get rid of that one. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of that. I got this field right here. I'm going to get rid of this. This guy, can we make them smaller? Let's get them up out of the way. Okay, here we go. This is really important. So this field is called GPS coordinates, okay? Just forget the name. It doesn't particularly matter. I'm going to put the Option key down on my Mac keyboard. It's an Option or Alt or Control, whatever it is. As I drag it down, it's going to make an identical copy. So now I have 2 identical copies. You're like, that's really stupid, okay? I understand that. What I'm going to do, but I'm going to change this field here to be the control style will be an edit box. And the idea is then I can see the real data that's in there. See up here right now, if you have a couple that are checked and a bunch that aren't checked, you don't really know what's really in the field because there's real data in the field and FileMaker is putting lipstick on the front of it. It's like lipstick on a pig, that old political thing from years ago. Oh, it's lipstick on a pig. FileMaker is putting lipstick on this field and trying to change how it looks. So we want to see how it really looks. So I'm going to go to browse mode. And so I'm just going to start a new record. I'm going to come down here. Dude, I am empty. Okay, hit approved. So now we know the word approved in there. That makes sense. But what if I have two words in there? Will it put them back to back? It puts a return. So it's creating a return delimited list. Okay. Now I click on that. I remove it. I click it on. I put it in. I say, no, not really. Now notice it's A, D, N, kind of alphabetical here. Now I'm going to remove def trap, and it's going to remove it from right here. If I put it back in, where does it go? So it's not trying to preserve any sort of order. The logic is that if it has to add a new one, if you have to add a new one, it's going to add at the bottom. If it has to remove one, like if I have death trap here, see, because I can manually override. Check this out. If I type the word, if I get rid of death trap right there, it goes away. What if I type failed? What if I type fail? Ooh, so you can have data in here that's not reflected up here in the checkboxes. What if I put failed like that? Checkbox comes on. Okay, interesting. So you got that, you got that. So you can programmatically tell FileMaker to set this field to a certain value, or you could say it to add it to the value. FileMaker down here doesn't really care the order of these things at all, none. Okay, it's just going to, now if I put failed in here twice, and I don't even know the answer to this, let me try this. So let's see what it does. And I haven't tried this, it's a good one. If I remove failed here, for sure it's going to remove at least one of them. Will it remove both? Or we'll just find the first one, remove it, and then figure it's done. Probably that, probably that. Let's try 1, 2, 3. Remove the first one. So if you put more than one in, so you try to get rid of it and it's still there. See that? That was it. Let's do that again. That was fun. So here's failed. And it doesn't really matter. I'm going to put maybe the first one at the top. By the way, notice failed approved. This fail right here is causing a checkbox to come on, but this approved isn't up here because these failed approved is a different string because it's based upon the return character. Sees that as one value. So I'm going to put a return character right here. So now I have two failed and one approved, and I click out, it updates. You have to, while you're doing this, you have to click out, then FileMaker will update the layout. That's a big part of the conversation moving forward is how and when a layout is updated, okay? So here you have failed, you have approved, okay? Pretty great. If I click on it and I remove it, it removes one, but it's still checked because that checkbox is still showing up there. You see how that worked? That was really interesting. Then if you check it again, it goes away. That could be a bug you'd have. And people say, I checked it, it didn't go away. Then I clicked it again, then it went away. It's not the user is high on cocaine and reporting a bug to you. It's the fact that that value was in there twice. Well, the user could be on cocaine. Once again, depends on what kind of organization you're in. I've seen some really interesting people I thought were just hyperactive, and someone said, no, they're high on coke. And I said, okay, well, if you take me on 28 super caffeinated Mountain Dews, sugar-free Mountain Dews, and then you turn me loose, that's what I guess cocaine looks like. Questions? Law and order. Law and order.
No, just a comment that Claris should disable drag and drop on this type of field.
That's a really good question. It's one of those sort of things like what kind of, Nick is the ultimate shenanigan guy when it comes to layouts, but it's not a basic beginner conversation, right? Like drag and dropping. Yeah, I generally drag and drop works for most things, but turning it off, there's no checkbox. Like there's no checkbox anywhere on here to disable drag and drop, turn off drag and drop. That's not a bad idea. That should be over here. So anyway, so the short version is that when you have fields over here, these are the control modes. I can just cover this other one real quick. Radio checkbox, you're like, aha, what's the difference? It's round. Okay, if I create a new record, I put approved in, and then it has that value in there. If I click another one, the behavior, the file, this is the lipstick on the pig, the lipstick. This is the pig. This is the pig with lipstick up here. If I click death trap, it removes that one, puts that one in. You're like, aha, I can force customers and people to only put one entry in. Makes perfect sense unless they hold the shift key down or command key or whatever it is. Is it shift? There you go. And then they can add more than one. It's like, well, what the hell good is that? If I wanted that, I put checkboxes in, right? So that's not a security thing. It's just if people know that, they can get themselves in trouble. If they don't know that, they pick one or the other, right? Generally, you'll be okay with that, but it's not like rock solid, idiot proof development. They could get themselves in trouble with that. So we did, let me see what we did here. So we had Drop-down list so they can edit. Drop-down menu, which is pretty locked in concrete. Checkbox set, which they definitely can select more than one. Radio button set, they can only select one unless they know they should hold the shift key down. Drop-down calendar is just like a date field, and it pops a calendar for you. You click on it, and it pops up a calendar, and then it puts the calendar in. Yeah, you see that? It's like normally this would be a date field, and you would do that. Drop-down calendar, concealed edit box. This is pretty solid here. So say that this is, remember, this is the raw data, this is the raw data, this is the pig, and this is the pig with lipstick. So what Claris does is it obscures this. So as I type stuff in here, I click out, that's what I typed in. So if I type in, I'm going to type in a secret message, 100 for a street race, hit return, tab. Okay, so that's what it turns into, right? So if you click out, it randomizes the number of dots you have. If you click into it, it shows the actual number of dots corresponding to characters. This is the real text that's in there. So this is a way that someone could put in maybe some sensitive information. Sally over here is putting information in, but she doesn't want to see the laundering guide. She doesn't want to have him see the password that they put in or something. Some sort of maybe sense like your social security number on the screen. You want to obscure that somehow, right? That kind of stuff. Layout mode. Keep going. We're barely getting through all this, right? So that's control styles. Always show a vertical scroll bar. That's if you have an area you could show a scroll bar over there. Pretty straightforward. I'm not going to get into repeating fields. We'll save that for another day. It's kind of old school. Hide object when. This is a big one. This is the Harry Potter invisibility cloak. For those of you who ever saw the Harry Potter movies, he'd have this like blankie that would throw around his head, and whatever was under the blankie would become invisible. The ultimate crime-inducing tool. First thing that he did was break school rules and become a criminal. So Harry Potter's first use of a cloaking device was to do crime, which was awesome. So if you want to come over here, we say that if. So what we're going to do is we're going to hide an object if this is this. I click on the object. In this case, it's this object right here. And I can say hide it when a formula happens. I can say if 1 equals 1, right? And I always, for those of you trying to be cute, it's always a formula. If something equals something, if it's true, then it's going to hide the object. It's not show the object, it's hide the object. So you have to read that object. If this equals this, then hide the object. That will help your brain stay out of trouble, okay? Because every time I try to get kind of convoluted with this, I get screwed up and backwards. So 1 will always equal 1. If that's true, then it's going to hide the object. So if I click on, I'm in layout mode, I see it. How could that be? It should only hide object, and this should be for browse mode, right? Browse mode, it's gone. Will it ever show up? Does 1 ever not equal 1? Only if you have the new math process that they teach in inner cities, in which case 1 might or might not be anything important, in which case it doesn't matter. But for the rest of us, 1 equals 1. So let's change the formula to something more interesting. I can click on edit here. This brings up the calculation dialog. The first time we've talked about the calculation dialog since we've started this training. The calculation dialog, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but this is the formula and the part that you need. So when I said 1 equals 1, it was right here. This is where it was at. On the left are fields that we can tap into. On the right are special functions that do stuff, right? Like I can have a function that tells me today's date or the date of today, right? For example, if I say if GPS coordinates equals 1, okay, I just put a 1 in there. Then I hit OK. So it says if the GPS coordinates equal 1, then it will hide the object. So I go to browse mode. Okay, dude, I am empty. See, it's visible. If I click 1 in here, oh, but it's hidden, but down here it'll show up. I'm going to click out. You see it's 1 and it hides that. That's pretty cool stuff. When this came out, it really changed how we built some of these layouts in FileMaker. It's really great. So it's in FileMaker wanted to call it programmatic, as in programming, programmatic object visibility, or POV. That's what their engineers at Claris call this. The marketing team decided that sucked, and POV was also trademarked by Microsoft or someone. So while I call it the Harry Potter invisibility cloak, I'm sure J.K. Rowling would get mad at me for saying that if I was a big company. Claris has called it hiding, as in that's not really a trade. Now, hiding is just a verb. All the kids do it when they're little children and they hide in the house. You can't find them, and you have to figure out where they're at. So layout mode. is there. So this is the object. The hide mode, you can tell this set of hiding has a little eyeball right here. Remember the eyeball over here is to hide it. This hides it in layout mode. This with this over here is what hides it in browse mode. Okay, fields right here. You can allow entry of people edit this in browse mode or not. So you can have a text field. So here's two identical fields. I'm going to just make them both edit boxes. These are both identical, okay? They're both edit boxes. This one here is going to be set to only allow entry in find mode or not at all. So I go to browse mode, I click on it, nothing happens. Click on it down here. Oh yeah, it's editable, right? Notice it's no longer one, so this shows up, right? Layout mode, back to layout mode. So questions about this. So you can restrict when people go in here. Oh, another good one. Normally the default behavior of FileMaker is as you want to navigate through fields, you tab. So it's the tab key on your keyboard, top left, tab, 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 tab. Now there is a tab order. Just trust me that you're not stuck. If you don't like, oh, I don't like the tab order. See, it came down and then went up. That's bullshit. That's criminal. Oh, that's a 1 year in local jail for doing improper tab orders. So if you don't want to do that crime, I want to go to layout mode and reset the tab order. I don't do this about twice a year, 3 times a year, so I have to find it. Set tab order. This allows us to set the order in which the tabs pop up, okay? Or as you tab, it jumps. Now, understand that that's the tab order. You can change it. It was under layouts, right? Tab order. But then over here, you have this. Go to the next object when using tab, return, or enter. As a beginner, you should probably leave it as this. But if you have people who are hitting return a lot, like if you tell them, we want to go over here, we're going to put, that one, I can't click on that one. Click on this one down here. I want to go over here. And then I'm going to press the return key. And they like absolutely refuse to learn correctly to tab or to click. And they keep hitting return and typing it. And they go, damn it, I thought I was supposed to be up there somewhere, right? So what you can do is you can come over here. And if you know that they're never supposed to put a return in there legitimately, you just turn on return and enter over here, okay? Like for starting point, I try not to do this. I try to keep FileMaker in its default mode. So here we go. I can delete all this stuff, but then if I hit the return key, instead of going down, it jumps the tab order. Now, using script triggers, you could have it jump using other criteria. That's more of an intermediate function, I would say. Intermediate to baby, between intermediate and senior. But yeah, that's a tabbing, catching that, jumping. It's probably an intermediate function. Yeah. So anyway, that's the idea with that, but we're not doing script triggers today. That's on day like 30 or something. Do not display visual spell checker is what it is. Set input method to automatic, set data types. This is useful for touch keyboard, right? So if you're on an iPhone or iPad and you click into a field, you only want to show a certain kind of keyboard. This is where you restrict that. So you can have like a phone type or a full keyboard or ASCII or whatever you want to do, right? Makes sense. Then you can format data. So if you have a number data, you can tell it to format as currency, things like that. Understand that if I go back to GPS coordinates and I change it to a number field, I'm gonna change it to number field. So I went to field definitions, right? I'm sorry, I did that really fast. I'm here, I go file, manage, database. I clicked on the field, I change it to number type, okay? And I'm in browse mode. I can say 235.3, right? Now, that is the raw data, but FileMaker will put lipstick on that pig for you, right? So you come over here, you say currency, and you can format it down here. You can say show the $sign, show pounds, system separators, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then you can say do not show if it's a 0, and the fixed number of decimals was 2, browse mode. There we go. So this is the raw data. This is the raw data with lipstick on it. Notice I can't click in here. If I allow myself to click in here and I say allow entry into browse mode, that re-enables it. Click in here, it removes the lipstick. See that? So when you click into a field in FileMaker and it's applied lipstick to it, it will remove the lipstick for you as a general rule. I'm going to say not doesn't always, but in this case, it's definitely doing that. Then you can see the raw number. So I can see your custom. So if you have a user and they put in some dollar amount, hopefully they don't ask you where the last character is. They might, in which case you might not want them to be able to edit in here, or you have to explain to them how math works, whatever, right? You get the idea. But you can suppress the lipstick, or you can show the lipstick and not let them to see it, blah, 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 whatever you want to do. Okay. Starting to run out of time. Questions. We've done a pretty good job here.
We have just a request from Ruben to enter Area 51 GPS coordinates.
Yeah, I'm flying by there on next Wednesday, so we will work on Area 51 GPS coordinates. It's an area. It's not like a specific spot, but I'll bring up the runway. I think at Dreamland, right? And it's they have a call sign. I got the tower frequency. I can call them up on the radio. They might not be too happy with me, but I can call them on the radio and say, "Hey, what's up, dog?" So yeah, so we try that next Wednesday. I'll give you guys an update on how that goes. If I disappear, you'll know that I was swallowed up by Men in Black. All right, anything else?
Oh, I sent you an HEIF image.
Oh, is that a HIF?
It should be a HIF. No,
Okay.
It became a JPEG. Why did it become a JPEG?
Okay, we'll have to work on that tomorrow. That's it for today. Any other questions? Pretty good run through on this. It's hard to get through all of it. Hey, these other tabs over here, they do. How about that? There's your criminal element. So we could always come back. You want us to pick that up tomorrow and talk about that? We could extend on that a little bit, Margaret.
We can. Some of them would be important, like the rounding things you use a lot, and a couple other stuff ends up getting used.
Well, the appearance is important too. So let's pick up. What's tomorrow? What's day 2? What's next day? What's day 5?
What is tomorrow?
Let's get bump everything back.
Live training schedule is tomorrow is introduction to scripts.
Yeah, someone might really want to see that. So yeah, we'll try to do that, but we need to come back and spend time on this. I'm willing to vote if you folks want to post and vote. Anyone who's not Ruben or David Angel.
We could make a little votey thing and send it out to people and ask.
Make a go to monkey
poll.
Campaign.
Make a poll. Yeah.
Make a poll. Appreciate everyone being having a good sense of humor, and there we go. Thank you very much. All right, see ya, everyone. Have a good one.
Awesome, everybody. Bye.
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir!